Hey there, truth seekers. Imagine you're living 3,000 years ago. You're convinced, absolutely convinced, that your spouse has been unfaithful. But there's no proof, no witnesses, no DNA, just that gnawing jealousy that won't let go. So what do? Do you take matters into your own hands? Divorce, violence, public shaming? Or is there a better way? Now, imagine opening your Bible and reading Numbers chapter 5, where God prescribes a ritual involving bitter water that supposedly reveals guilt through physical effects. And suddenly the question hits you. Doesn't this sound like ancient superstition, magic, mindless ritual? To modern ears, it can sound like someone saying, drink this cup and we'll see what happens. And if that's all this passage were doing, the objection would be fair. Those are exactly the kinds of questions that stop people in their tracks. And that's exactly what we're tackling today. Welcome to episode 219 of the Bible Difficulties and Answers podcast. I'm your host, Lance Smith. Today we're asking about Numbers 5, 13 to 22. Doesn't the Bible condone superstition here? Let's take a look at the objection. Now, the objection is pulled straight from the Big Book of Bible Difficulties. Paul warns in 1 Timothy 4:7 against old wives' tales. Yet, in Numbers 5, reading from verses 11 to 31, Moses appears to command a ritual with no scientific basis. Let's read the passage so we're clear on what we're dealing with. Yes, it's long, but it's important. And the Lord said to Moses, give the following instructions to the people of Israel. Suppose a man's wife goes astray, and she is unfaithful to her husband and has sex with another man, but neither her husband nor anyone else knows about it. She has defiled herself, even though there were no witness and she was not caught in the act. If her husband becomes jealous and is suspicious of his wife and needs to know whether or not she has defiled herself, the husband must bring his wife to the priest. He must also bring an offering of 2 quarts of barley flour to be presented on her behalf. Do not mix it with olive oil or frankincense, for it is a jealousy offering, an offering to prove whether or not she is guilty. The priest will then present her to stand trial before the Lord. He must take some holy water in a clay jar and pour it into dust he has taken from the tabernacle floor. When the priest has presented the woman before the Lord, he must unbind her hair and place in her hands the offering of proof, the jealousy offering to determine whether her husband's suspicions are justified. The priest will stand before her, holding the jar of bitter water that brings a curse to those who are guilty. The priest will then put the woman under oath and say to her, if no other man has had sex with you, and you have not gone astray and defiled yourself while under your husband's authority, may you be immune from the effects of this bitter water that brings on the curse. But if you have gone astray by being unfaithful to your husband and have defiled yourself by having sex with another man, at this point, the priest must put the woman under oath by saying, may the people know that the Lord's curse is upon you when he makes you infertile, causing your womb to shrivel and your abdomen to swell. Now, may this water that brings the curse enter your body and cause your abdomen to swell and your womb to shrivel. And the woman will be required to say, yes, let it be so. And the priest will write these curses on a piece of leather and wash them off into the bitter water. He will make the woman drink the bitter water that brings on the curse. When the water enters her body, it will cause bitter suffering if she is guilty. The priest will take the jealousy offering from the woman's hand, lift it up before the Lord, and carry it to the altar. He will take a handful of flour as a token portion and burn it on the altar, and he will require the woman to drink the water. If she has defiled herself by being unfaithful to her husband, The water that brings on the curse will cause bitter suffering. Her abdomen will swell, and her womb will shrink, and her name will become a curse among her people. But if she has not defiled herself and is pure, then she will be unharmed and will still be able to have children. This is the ritual law for dealing with suspicion. If a woman goes astray and defiles herself while under her husband's authority, or if a man becomes jealous and is suspicious that his wife has been unfaithful, the husband must present his wife before the Lord, and the priest will apply this entire ritual law to her. The husband will be innocent of any guilt in this matter, but his wife will be held accountable for her sin. Back to me. Both the innocent woman and the guilty woman drink the same water. So how does one suffer physical consequences and the other not? Unless this is superstition. That's the challenge. Norman Geisler and Thomas Howe offer a careful, thoughtful response, and it's worth hearing from them directly. Again, kind of long, but important. They write, "The text does not say that the difference in the guilty woman's condition had a chemical or physical cause. In fact, it indicates that the cause was spiritual and psychological. Guilt is not a physical cause. The reason the belly of a guilty woman might swell can be easily explained by what's known scientifically about psychosomatic, or mind over matter, conditions. Many women have experienced false pregnancies, where their stomachs and breasts enlarge without being pregnant. Some people have even experienced blindness from psychological causes. Experiments with placebo pills or sugar pills indicate that many people with terminal illnesses get the same relief from them as from morphine. So it is a scientific fact that the mind can have a great effect on bodily processes. Now, given that the text says that the woman was placed under an oath before God with the threat of a curse, as we read in verse 21, if she was actually guilty, the bitter water would have worked like a psychosomatic lie detector. A woman who believed she would be cursed and knew she was guilty would be so affected. But those who knew that they were innocent would not. Furthermore, the text does not say anyone actually drank the water and experienced an enlarged stomach. It simply says if, as we found in verses 14 and 28. If she does, then this will result. No doubt, just the belief that this would happen and that one would be found guilty would have convinced the woman who knew she was guilty not to even subject herself to the process. Okay, that's a solid explanation. But the passage is doing more than that, much more. See, this is not superstition. Numbers 5 contains the Bible's only trial by ordeal. And that matters because trials by ordeal were common in the ancient Near East, and they were brutal. In pagan cultures, accused women were thrown into rivers, forced to handle burning objects, or made to ingest poisons. Survival meant innocence. Death meant guilt. If you need a modern image, think Monty Python's Witch and the Duck from the Holy Grail movie. Numbers 5 is nothing like that. The so-called bitter water consists of holy water, tabernacle dust, and dissolved ink from a written curse. Nothing toxic, nothing magical, nothing manipulative. And the text is explicit. The Lord Himself causes any effect if the woman is guilty. This is not an attempt to manipulate spiritual forces. The Torah condemns that elsewhere. Think of this less like a magic trick and more like a legal injunction. The process freezes the situation, no private punishment, no impulsive action, until the case is handed over to the highest authority possible. This is judgment placed entirely in God's hands. So, really, this is a restraint on power. As Marge Mousko notes in her detailed analysis, This ritual actually functions as a protection for women in a deeply patriarchal society. A jealous husband could not simply accuse his wife and act on suspicion. He had to bring her publicly before the priest. He had to present a grain offering, an implicit admission that his jealousy might be unfounded. And he had to submit to the outcome entirely to God. In other words, jealousy doesn't get to be both prosecutor and executioner. If the woman was innocent, she left vindicated, her name cleared, her fertility affirmed, her standing restored. That's not oppression, that is restraint. Jewish scholarship reinforces this point. Articles from thetorah.com emphasize that the Sotah ritual permitted a husband to remain with his wife only after submitting to this God-ordained process, preventing rash divorce, private punishment, or violence fueled by jealousy. So, really, this is moral refinement, not barbarism. Biblical scholar Micha in The Law of the Sotah and the Cup of Wrath shows that the prophets often describe God forcing unfaithful Israel to drink a cup of wrath for spiritual adultery. Numbers 5 institutionalizes a milder, regulated version of practices already present in the surrounding culture. No poison, no mob justice, no presumption of guilt. Instead, the ritual is priest-administered, public, restrained, and aimed at resolving destructive jealousy rather than punishing by default. This isn't moral regression, it's moral refinement. Now, was the woman meant to be innocent? Here's a thoughtful observation from the Lehrhaus. It becomes crucial. In Was the Sotah Meant to be Innocent? The author notes that the structure of the ritual itself seems tilted toward acquittal, not conviction. The process is cumbersome, and it's public, and it's spiritually weighty. And Scripture never records a single instance where the curse is actually enacted. It's almost like a legal system designed so carefully that conviction only occurs if the evidence walks into the courtroom by itself. That doesn't weaken the text, it strengthens it. And really, this is a bigger biblical story. Alistair Roberts connects the dots beautifully. The bitter water of Numbers 5 echoes the prophetic cups of judgment and ultimately points to Jesus Christ. Christ drinks the true cup of God's wrath. He bears the curse for his bride, the church. And through him, judgment gives way to grace. Even more pastorally oriented voices, like Brad Jersak, acknowledge this trajectory. While Jersak presses readers to wrestle honestly with the discomfort of the passage, he still recognizes that the law restrains violence, interrupts cycles of accusation, and gestures toward a more Christ-like resolution than Israel's surrounding cultures ever offered. That's not superstition. That's redemptive theology unfolding in history. So, in conclusion, Numbers 5 does not condone superstition. In a fallen world of unchecked jealousy and lethal ordeals, God provides a unique, supervised, theocentric way to handle unprovable accusations. It restrains power, it protects the vulnerable, it exposes hidden sin only if God chooses, and it points us forward to the ultimate jealous husband who bore the bitterness for us all. That is the beauty and the restraint of this text. If this podcast is helping you think more carefully, more confidently about the Bible, I'd be grateful for your support at buymeacoffee.com/LanceSmith. It's always appreciated and it's never expected. You can find every episode at BibleDifficultiesAndAnswers.podbean.com. Email me at BibleDifficultiesAndAnswers@gmail.com or join the discussion on our Facebook page. Thanks for listening, for sharing the show, and for being part of this community. I'm Lance Smith, wishing you good health, good study, and God's richest blessings. So long, everybody.